Well, some folks this morning woke up to a little bit of a Gomer Pyle morning, right, Joe Rayo?
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yes, some places actually got several inches of snow out of this. Uh, o- Warm fronts you should never fool around with because that's what that was last night. Now we're moving along to some rain overnight, some sunshine and record highs possible for Tuesday before we get more rain, and then some rather cold weather for the very end of the week and for the weekend. And there's not going to be any kind of storm system, folks, so you can put that in the bank. There is some wintry weather going on in parts of the West, so we'll talk all of this on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which you can support during this holiday season, or for that matter, during any season, by doing your Amazon shopping via the referral link that is pinned to the top of the chat board or is on the descriptor to this podcast. It costs you nothing, folks. Just go and do your search, buy whatever it is you're going to buy, and Amazon is going to throw us back a little bit of coin out of their pocket and not yours. And we appreciate very much your support by shopping our referral link on Amazon. Because if you do that, I can keep the ads to an absolute minimum, which is a good thing. So, anyway, so you got to, did you use the blower or no?
Yes, we did.
Oh, very
Because
good.
it was the snow. There really wasn't a whole heck of a lot, about 2.5 inches, but it was a heavy, wet snow, heavy, wet consistency. And I said to myself after shoveling for about 5 minutes, I said, I'll be GD'd if I'm going to continue with this for another couple of more hours. So I just broke out the blower for the first time this year, and it did its job and scraped off what I left behind. And nature is doing her job now tonight. Temperatures are going to be on the rise, slowly but surely through the 40s. So we have a warm front moving in and through, and we also have fog. And fog, in case any of you are unaware, fog is a very, very good snow eater. And so I don't expect all the snow to be gone, but between the rising temperatures, between the rain, yes, we do have rain tonight in the forecast, and between the fog, I'm expecting a goodly amount of that snow that fell late last night to be gone by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. And tomorrow, here we go, Joe. You talk about weather whiplash, waking up this morning to 2 or 2.5 inches of snow. And tomorrow in the afternoon, temperatures will be challenging records here in the lower Hudson Valley, with readings climbing through the 50s, maybe even approaching, although I do not think we'll match or exceed the record for tomorrow, which is 61. But still, we're going to be quite mild tomorrow out there with a return to sunshine by late morning and midday. So looks like a pretty nice day coming up.
Well, I've got some snow amounts plotted courtesy of NWS Boston, and I actually put the link on the chat board for those of you who want to look at those. They're all plotted on this map, and just a north, 4 miles northwest of New Fairfield, Connecticut, got 4 inches out of this. 3 miles southwest of New Preston, Connecticut, got 2.5. Uh, 2 miles northeast of Naugatuck, Connecticut. You'd think we would get somebody actually in any of those towns, but no. 2 miles northeast of Naugatuck, Connecticut, 3 inches. Meridian, Connecticut, 1 mile northwest of the airport, got two. In the Hudson Valley, Joe, northeast Cold Spring Harbor, 1 mile northeast of northeast Cold Spring, not Cold Spring Harbor, that's Long Island. 1 mile northeast of Cold Spring, New York, 4.5, 4.5.
Wow,
And Shrub Oak,
not too
does
far
that
from
ring
where
a
I am.
Shrub Oak ring a bell?
Yes, Shrub Oak.
Three and a half at Shrub, Shrub Oak at the
Yes, that's
Cochrane's station.
that is the station that is manned by Dan. Please, please, I'm not getting that old.
You are. So am I. We both are. I get
Yeah.
it. And what's his name?
Thaler, Dan Thaler.
Dan Lale.
Dan, if you're watching, I'm sorry. Dan,
Somers.
Dan's father was a cooperative weather observer for the National Weather Service at Yorktown Heights for about 50 years. And then
Wow.
after he passed, Dan took the reins and took the weather equipment and took them to his house in Shrub Oak. And you actually see all of those observations on the National Weather Service um, in Upton. They have for past weather, they have
Right.
Shrub Oak listed, and that's where they come from.
On their public information statements. Somers, New York. 3 inches there. In New Jersey, Green Pond, New Jersey, at 4.1 inches, in between all the drones, I guess. West Milton, New Jersey, got three. Wantage in Northwest New Jersey, 4.2. Let's see. What's this one? High Point, 2 miles south of High Point, 4.1. And 4 miles west southwest of Wantage got 3.4. Uh, so
Okay.
actually, some of these, there was like a coating to an inch or two around Allentown. There was a coating to an inch or so around Harrisburg, and also, it's how the cold air wound up wedging in the way it did. Western Maryland, coating to a couple of inches here and there, and in parts of northwestern Virginia, again, also places getting a coating to as much as an inch. So, this was actually a little bit of a surprise. Further up the Hudson Valley, there were some, coating to an inch or two northwest of Albany. So, scattered amounts here. So, a lot of folks woke up to the white stuff this morning. And of course, nothing is more depressing than when the white stuff gets washed away.
Well, Latex Streams was asking on the chat board about Yonkers. Yonkers didn't get anything because they were just a little bit too warm. We knew last night that the winter weather advisories were posted chiefly for places north of 287, Interstate 287. And indeed, that was the case. The only thing was the expectation would be more in the way of freezing precipitation, freezing
Right.
drizzle, freezing rain. Um, Snow, I mean, I had mentioned last night it probably was going to start to snow everywhere, which it did. The only problem with the forecast was it never changed. Well, it did change. It finally changed like
At the end.
9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
You know,
I got to check what the rainfall amounts were on Long Island because when I looked at, let me just check iSlip here for 1 second because when I looked at the radar at one point this morning, I mean, the radar looked like they looked like huge thunderstorms. There were these big areas of red over central Long Island, where, by the way, they're still getting light rain at the moment. Uh, yeah, I mean, look at this, Joe. iSlip got 45, 53, 97, and another 35. And from something where the models were giving basically a few hundreds, almost an inch and a third of rain there. An inch and a third. I mean that's insane.
yeah, and I looked yesterday. I don't know how many people still look at the NAM FOOS. This is the tabular data for the atmosphere as excuse me, as put out by the North American model, the NAM. And I'm saying to myself, looking at that, I'm saying, we may not get much in the way of frozen precipitation at all because the boundary level temperatures down at the surface where you and I happen to be in the tri-state area at LaGuardia and even up north up toward Albany really weren't all that cold. And I said, there may be more rain than anything else. And so somewhere along the line between the fact that the models missed out on predicting or being able to forecast the amount of snow that we had and also the amount of precipitation overall, I don't know, maybe some bad data got into the mix last night or yesterday because this was really not too good forecast from
No, all
all
the way around. And I got a couple of pictures from our friend Izzy D, who was up in Rockland County. So I'm going to just show one or two of those. Uh, where is it? Okay, there it is. So here's, the coating to a few inches, depending on where you were in Rockland County. So if you didn't get to see any snow, at least like you get to come to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast and see other people that have gotten some snow. I'm just going to let me get one other one here. Okay. Well, here's a close-up shot of the same one. So let's do that. And there you go. Nice little stones there, white stuff. And as you said, Joe, pretty much all washed away to oblivion as the warmer air comes in and more rain tonight. We really, when you think about it, how dry it was for September, from early September to mid-November, by the time we get through this week, most of that rainfall deficit in many areas, not all, but in many areas, is going to get wiped away, and that's a big plus.
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to get wiped away, but there's going to be a significant diminishing. I mean, we had like, 9 to 10 or 11 inches of snow.
No,
Excuse me.
well, just for Long Island, for example, they've gotten since 8.5 inches of rain, not counting today, which is another inch and a third. So they've got close
Right,
to 10 inches in the eastern half of Long Island. So that their deficit was running at around 10 or 11. So that's almost all gone.
right. Rich Rosmansky is saying the new drought map will be released tomorrow. Actually, the data um, which will form that drought map will be all together by tomorrow, but the actual appearance of the drought map will not be until Thursday morning. So all the data is collected up until Tuesday, but they wait until Thursday before they post it or they publish it. How much
All
snow
right.
did I have, Busy D? She's asking on the chat board. This was measured by Mrs. Rayo, about 2.5 inches, maybe give or take a half inch either way, but that's how much we had. And again, it was a very heavy, wet snow, not easy to move if you're doing any scraping or whatever. But and that's why I broke out the. I normally would not break out the snowblower for an amount less than 3 inches, but I did it today simply because again it was so heavy and so the consistency was it was just simply tough to move. So let the machine do it.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's see what's going on tonight. You can load up the radars if you'd like, Joe, and then you can come back and do them because you do them so well. We have some winter weather advisories up for New Hampshire and Maine, not near the coast though. And we also have a number of winter weather advisories and some winter storm warnings in the Northwest from western Wyoming, across western Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, and in Northern California down in the Sierra Nevadas, are getting some wintry precipitation in the mountains there with heavy rains along the coast. And as we check out the satellite tonight, the satellite loop, here comes this weather front that is pushing through. There's no real cold air behind it. The air behind it is pretty much the same as the air ahead of it. So once this front clears out, the drier air comes in. Plus, you throw in some sunshine, even though it is the lowest angles of sunshine that you can get during the course of the year, it's still going to be enough to boost temperatures up towards 60 degrees tomorrow. And then you've got more energy coming into the west as everything marches along. And this active pattern is going to continue here. With when we get these shots of cold air, the next one of importance really comes down late in the week and over the weekend. Uh, Once that cold air mass pulls out, we're going to warm up and rain again because that's just the way it's been playing out. And here's the wide view of the radar. We've got showers in western New York, all the way down through West Virginia into Kentucky and Tennessee, some areas of heavy rain, and even some thunderstorms that have broken out in parts of Arkansas into northeast Texas, back to the Dallas Fort Worth area. But Joe Rayo is going to take us around some of these radars uh, now, and it's all yours.
All right, well, we'll start off with our good friends over at Upton, New York, the National Weather Service in New York City. Although they're not in New York City, they're about 100 miles to the east of Midtown Manhattan. But nonetheless, you could see that there is rain falling across a swath of southern Connecticut, across much of Long Island Sound, central and eastern Long Island, and also some more rain moving into Nassau County in the final few frames of the loop. There's also some rain entering the picture over in eastern Pennsylvania, moving toward western New Jersey. And in fact, if we go further south and east, let's go to Philadelphia, Wrightstown, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can see that next area of precipitation. For the moment, at least where I am, we're not seeing very much of anything, maybe a little bit of mist or drizzle here and there. But now another wave of rain, which, according to the folks over at WPC, may put down another, at least an additional quarter inch, maybe even in a few places, a third or even a half an inch of rain. It's all advancing through eastern Pennsylvania, and again, we'll be moving into western New Jersey very, very soon. And ultimately, later tonight, it'll take a shot at the New York metropolitan area and the lower Hudson Valley. There is significant rainfall that is already occurring to the south and west. This is a view from Washington, D.C. or Sterling, Virginia. And you see all of that rain that's covering much of western and central Pennsylvania, central Maryland, and moving on into, again, South Jersey. And you're right, Joe, that there's some flashes of orange and yellow here. So maybe there's a little embedded convection. But in any case, there are spurts of heavier rainfall that will be occurring during the coming hours with this new mass of rain that is, again, moving on a southwest to northeast trajectory. We take a look at the folks over in Pittsburgh or Coriopolis, and you can see that here is that area of rain. It was over Pittsburgh and western PA, but now it is advancing rather quickly, I might add, to the east and moving now into central Pennsylvania. There's kind of a trailing end here that moves through the western edge of Maryland and across the northern section of West Virginia. Let's continue further south and west. Let's go down to, let's go to Roothdale or Charleston, West Virginia. And you can see that there, Charlie West, as we used to call it lovingly when I used to do plots, what we called sectionals. We used to look for Charleston, West Virginia, called it Charlie West. Anyway, northern sections of West Virginia getting doused with some rainfall, not all that much over central and southern sections of the state. As we continue south and west, let's go into Tennessee, Knoxville, Morristown, and you can see that again. This is that activity that we just looked at a little while ago, further to the north up in West Virginia. The trailing end now moving across Kentucky, extreme western sections of Virginia, and into northeastern sections of Tennessee. And again, it almost looks like there's a line of thundery weather perhaps embedded in this. Whatever. Looks like it's a pretty good area of rain that is falling over northeastern Pennsylvania. We'll take one more stop here into, let's go to High Top, Alabama. High Top, I presume, is right here. A little bit of precipitation moving across northern Alabama, but most of the activity, as you can see here, there's that line of possible convection over Tennessee, eastern Tennessee, and more significant rainfall moving through central Tennessee as well. So you can see that there's some action on the radar tonight, extending from the Tennessee River Valley and north and east, and moving on up into the vicinity again of New York and southern New England by later tonight. And so if you're going out and about tonight, you may want to bring along an umbrella because you're going to need it once again.
Storm Prediction Center, by the way, does have a marginal risk for isolated severe thunderstorms from northeast Texas to western Tennessee. And then they've got nothing for the next couple of days. So this is just a one and done thing. And WPC, this is through next Monday night, a half to 3/4 of an inch of liquid. So that's going to come with whatever we get tonight and then whatever we get later Wednesday and Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, because then after that, it's going to be dry. Loaded in the Pacific Northwest, especially along the coast, where we're looking at 6 inches or more of rain over the next week in Washington State, Oregon, and into parts of Northern California, and a little extension of heavy moisture in the northern areas of the Sierra Nevadas, and also some heavy precip up the Cascades, as well as in northern Idaho and extending up into southwestern Canada. So uh, that is pretty much the story precip wise. Now, for the next 72 hours, this is the probability for at least 2 inches because the system for Wednesday is likely to bring some snow in parts of upstate New York. You can see a 80% or higher probability in northern New York for at least two, and 50% or higher, covering much of central and northern Vermont, central and northern New Hampshire, much of Maine except near the coast, and then on the other side, on the Canada side, and up the St. Lawrence River Valley, we're also seeing some high probabilities for at least two. The other area of consequence is going to be up, well, a couple of other areas. We've got the Northern Plains. Now, this is the diver that's going to come into the east at the end of the week and do nothing. And you can see there's a streak here of 90% or higher probability running out of Canada across North Dakota and Minnesota through northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And the 50% line goes pretty far south into Minnesota and Wisconsin. So there's that. And then out in the west, it's mostly in the Cascades for the next 72 hours and up in part in Idaho and the northern Rockies, where you see some areas of high probability for at least a couple of inches of snow there. Let me just take a look. Now, the probabilities, there are areas of just a few areas where there's an indication of a probability of at least 12. So that would be, again, the Cascades, parts of southwestern Canada, and in northwestern Wyoming, where we see that. And of course, I don't have to show you the east. I will show it to you. There's nothing there. So there you go. So going forward, I don't have the whole run of the 18Z, so I guess we could use the 12Z on this. And we've got um, this shortwave trough that is moving through, the swinging through the Great Lakes and Northeast on Tuesday, a stronger trough. And now this is the front that's going to come through Wednesday night into Thursday. And then there's a secondary shortwave that drops southeastward, but it really doesn't do anything. It just sort of marches along. It doesn't amplify and doesn't cut off. So remember, folks, when you see 46 inches on the 310 hour or whatever hour that was, like we saw back last week, 99.99999% of the time, it's going to be real. It's going to be fake, and the 0.00001 time that it's right would probably mean that you just get, a couple of inches and that's it. So anyhow, that brings in cold air. It's a fairly cold upper air pattern going into the weekend. Ridge in the west, trough in the east, strong ridge going up into western Canada, strong northwest flow from the polar regions all the way down into the southeast. And then once that trough lifts out, you've got troughing that comes back into the western part of the United States for Christmas week. So we kind of go into this, westerly flow, and there'll be some disturbances that'll be moving along in that flow. Now, eventually, toward the last days of the month, the trough does come back into the eastern part of the United States. There have been several, runs and some of the longer range stuff that I was looking at today uh, kind of goes along with this idea, but we'll probably have to deal with it changing in certain ways over the next several days. But it doesn't look like it's a lock-in that we got warm. Yeah, we're going to get warm for about a week or so, and then then it's going to go back to maybe what we've had during much of December, which is cold air coming in with troughs. Troughs pull out, cold air pulls out, and it warms up and rains. As far as what this does on the surface, let's take a look and see tonight's system. There's a low moving across southern Canada there over James Bay and northeastward. And of course, as I said, there's no real cold air behind it. The cold high is actually coming into the northern plains Wednesday morning. So there's a front ahead of it that gets to the coast, and you can see it. It changes to snow in upstate New York and in interior areas of northern. You get up into northern New England. We get more rain, and that rain actually runs down into the Tennessee Valley. But then eventually just shifts offshore. And then there's a secondary push as the main upper trough swings through. I suppose, Joe, if you want to leave in that there could be the chance of maybe a couple of snow showers when that upper trough swings through Friday night,
Yeah.
when the quote unquote real cold air comes in. I'm not over, I wouldn't argue with that point if you wanted to put it in the forecast, but it does seem to me like it's a bit of a tough sell here. And the next high wedges up in eastern Canada. Of course, you've got southerly winds from Texas up to Wisconsin. So that's kind of telling you where that's going to go. And then eventually the high moves offshore. So it gets cold. It starts to get colder Friday, and then it particularly gets cold for Saturday and Sunday, and maybe even into the start of Monday. But then after that, it's going to probably warm up for Tuesday. It's going to warm up for Tuesday. A little bit of freezing rain there Tuesday evening, Christmas Eve being indicated. We just saw what happened yesterday with the last warm front, so maybe it'll be a repeat performance. And then Christmas Day, I don't know, kind of cloudy-ish, maybe some sprinkles around in the warmer air. And then you got another low that wants to come out of New Mexico, and when they come out of New Mexico, they like to go to the Western Lakes, and this one actually goes to the Western Lakes. So that brings maybe some more rain at the end of next week. And then after that, there's another, toward the end of the last days of the year and going into the new year, um, there is a colder high that comes down. Again, assuming that this is exactly what it's going to look like, which we know it's not. But uh, the overall trend has been for in and out shots of cold air. So I don't. My guess is that we'll probably go back to something like that when after next week, after we get through this little warm spell, and then we're back to where we started, which is the way the world works these days.
Well, a lot of people on the chat board in the last 5 or 10 minutes and saying things like, "Well, it never really snows anymore in December, and never the water, the Atlantic Ocean is still very warm compared to, let's say, the 1970s and 80s,
People have no memories, Joe.
and we just simply cannot buy any idea. I can't even remember when the last. Well, a lot of you don't seem to have good memories because it was on this day 4 years ago. And by the way, 4 years ago, this day was not a Monday, but it was a Wednesday. And on this day, we had an intense nor'easter. Now, people are saying, well, I can't remember the last time we had
Got
a
a
storm.
got a foot of snow out of that. I got if as I remember correctly, I got a foot of snow out of that on Long Island, where in central Long Island.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
just pointing that, an intense nor'easter, which brought the first measurable snowfall of the season, which began late in the afternoon. By midnight, 6.5 inches of snow had piled up in Central Park. This again is not 40 years ago, not 14 years ago. This was 4 years ago. 6.5 inches by midnight in Central Park, continued through daybreak, adding another 4 more inches. There were also periods of heavy sleet between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. This was, in fact, December's biggest snowfall since the post-Christmas blizzard. I call that the Bloomberg blizzard of 2010 that paralyzed the city with 20 inches. You may remember the day after Christmas in 2010, Mayor Bloomberg was nowhere to be found. I think he was in Bermuda, and he actually was telling people, no big deal, go to a Broadway show, go do something with yourselves. 20 inches of snow, and he kind of poo-pooed it. In fact, somebody asked him, he said, didn't you think that a snow emergency should be declared? No, why should there? How much snow do you need for a snow emergency to be declared in the minds of former Mayor Bloomberg? But anyway, that was 2010. This was 2020. 4 years ago, biggest snowstorm since that post-Christmas blizzard of 2010. The snowfall was more 4 years ago than what fell for the entire previous winter, 4.8 inches the previous winter. It was also a record amount for the date and was also the 13th December snowstorm to produce 10 inches or more. Again, 4 years ago, folks. All of you saying, it never snows anymore in December. We can't have snowstorm. I can't even remember the last big snowstorm that we had in December. There it is, 4 years ago. Dumped a tremendous amount of snow in Pennsylvania, New York, New England, some locations picking up 2 to 3 feet. You remember this, Joe? Binghamton, with this storm, 40 inches in one sitting. And besides the snow, it was also quite cold. Today's high low of 31.24 at Central Park made this the first day of the winter to have a high of 32 degrees or colder. Winds gusted 30 to 40 miles per hour, creating wind chills in the 10 to 15 degree range. P.S. P.S. Now, you know what happened on Christmas Eve? We had a surge of warm air and heavy rain, so that when everybody woke up and hoped for a white Christmas that year, less than 10 days after getting 10 inches of snow, there wasn't a single flake to be had anywhere. All the snow was gone, temperatures were in the 60s, and again, it rained heavily
Yeah,
during the night.
they got that year that year here, and they got 6 inches of snow Christmas Eve on North Georgia because it was a north-south cold front with a deep upper trough. So all the cold there went straight south, and everybody here woke up to a beautiful Christmas morning with snow everywhere. I've
Yeah,
actually had, I've been, this is my fourth Christmas here. So right. So let me see. The first two, 23, wait, 20. I'm sorry. Um, 21, 22, 22, 23. So the first two Christmases I had here, I had white Christmases on both those. I had snow on the ground on the first two. Last year I did not. So, but we did have snow on the ground here for the 20, uh, well, I wasn't here for 20 and 21, so it's actually 3 years in a row. So 2021, 21, 22 was my first year here, and then 22, 23 snow on the ground for Christmas. Wasn't a lot, just like a coating to an inch or so, but it was just really nice to see. Last year, um, no, we didn't get much of anything. So any,
and you may also remember, Joe, I was on this day in 1973. That's it pains me when I think about how many years ago that was. But 1973 on this day was a Sunday, one of the worst ice storms in New
oh,
York
I
City.
remember that. I
Continued
remember
for
that. I had to
yeah,
go to
21
school in that.
hours. Yeah,
They didn't close the schools for that ice storm. I remember that very clearly.
yeah. Worst of it was between 11 p.m. tonight and daybreak on December 17th, the following morning. Nearly 3 inches of sleet accumulated, an inch of ice formed on sidewalks, cars, and trees. For the entirety of the storm, the temperature range was very narrow, between 27 and 30 degrees. Interestingly, it was caused by a positively tilted trough in the upper atmosphere, and that produced enough warm air to come in, at least at low levels, to produce the icy conditions. Meanwhile, further to the west and south of us, it was all snow, and the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., got buried with about 10 or 12 inches of snow. So they had snow, we had ice, but it was probably was one of the worst ice storms that we have ever seen here in the New York, even worse than the ice storm that we saw in the year of the two big snowstorms, 1978. That again was in 1973. Remember that very well because that also coincided with my grandfather's 65th birthday, and it breaks my heart now to think that that now I'm 3 years older than that.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Uh, all right, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
yes, sir.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about New York City Christmases, and there are the three greatest snowstorms that occurred on Christmas Day in New York City. Can
On
you name
Christmas
those?
on Christmas Day now,
Yes,
because we have one of the greatest New York City snowstorms the day after Christmas in
right,
1947. And of
right.
course, the Bloomberg blizzard was the day
The
after
box,
Christmas
right, the
in
Boxing Day
22.
storm. Correct.
Uh, Now let's see. I remember a Christmas Eve storm that carried over into Christmas morning in 1966.
Okay, so that apparently is not here on this particular list. So it might have been most of the snow falling. before midnight. I don't, I have a vague memory of that storm, but that's not the three.
How about in 2002?
Yes, that's the number three. 2002
Yeah.
is number three. The snow would have had to fall on on Christmas Day itself. So yeah, and I actually drove to work in that, and it was not fun.
Oh, so
Um,
you were at Pix that night.
yes, I had to
Oh,
drive from Westchester County, from Harrison, down. Came down. I wound up coming down the Major Deegan, if I remember correctly, and it had changed over to snow at like it was kind of snowing for most of the afternoon, but around 4 or 5 o'clock, it really started snowing hard, which was about the time I had to get on the road. It was not fun. It really wasn't because it was blinding. Even though it was only 5 inches, it actually, yeah, it was very problematic.
and how did
Um,
you get home?
oh,
You weren't.
by the time I left, the snow had ended, so the roads became because it was one of these deals, Joe, where it was snowing and the temperature was like 32, 33. So
Right.
once it stopped snowing, the roads were pretty much wet. So getting home was not a problem. Actually, the number one is probably one that none of our audience members were around long enough to see. At least I don't think so, because you'd have to be 115. 1909, 7 inches on Christmas Day,
Wow.
and 7 years before that, in 1902, there was 6.5 inches. Okay. How about the warmest Christmas Day?
Didn't we just have that not too long ago, like 2015?
That's correct. Give yourself a bell ring, Joe, because you're like pulling up these numbers. 2015, I see a few people on the chat board
Yeah,
say 66. 66.
probably do.
And you and I both remember the coldest Christmas Day.
Oh, wow. 1980.
Yes, 1980. We had like an inch or so of snow on Christmas Eve. It felt like right before midnight because I remember walking to midnight mass and it was snowing and the ground was covered. By the time we got at St. Benedict's, by the way, and then mass was over, uh, sky was clear. Yes, -1, one below zero, in New York City in 1980. And the last time that we had a white Christmas in New York City, and the definition is 1 inch of snow on the ground. Okay, it doesn't have to actually be snowing, but there had to have been at least an inch of snow on the ground.
Well, let's see. There was that Christmas that you were in Connecticut with, and got 4 inches, and that same storm dropped about 2 or 3 inches on my house. That was the Christmas morning where Renata looked out the window and then saying, "Oh, look how beautiful it is." She looked
Right.
out, she saw snow, and she said, "Oh, poo."
Yeah, but there
Uh,
was there was no snow. It rained south of 287.
okay, kind of like it was today,
Yeah.
or the so the
Yeah, that was
last
the
time.
funny part about driving it because if you were on the north side of right on the north side, there was still like a coating of snow on the north side of 287. You go underneath you go underneath the overpass and come out the other side because it was on the hutch. You come out the other side and there was nothing. It was just like 287 was the demarcation line,
Yep,
the
yep.
shut off. The last time that there was snow on the ground on Christmas Day.
Oh dear. Well, you see, I have my memory is jaded
My,
because
are
I
you,
mean, I'm up here, and I remember a number of in the 22 years I've been up here, there have been several Christmases that have had snow on the ground more than an inch.
yeah,
But I don't remember New York City specifically. I don't
yeah.
live in the Bronx anymore, so
Right. So Chuck Cardillo, Mike Waterhouse Bonsai, Frank Scalera, you got to give these guys, and Frank R. all got it. 2009. 2009. And the last time we've had a trace of snow on Christmas.
a trace of snow. I
Yes.
mean, just like a sugar coating or I don't know. Then this is for Central Park.
This is for Central Park, correct. The last time we had a
Yeah, and
trace of snow on Christmas.
Again, I can't really say. I don't live in New York. If I were still in Throgs Neck, or if you were still in the Bronx, I'm sure the two of us would still remember these things. But we ain't anywhere near there anymore.
Yes, I know.
Chatboard is working on it, so
Let's see. Oh, Mike, Bobby Livingsworth. I'm impressed. 2017.
well, that was
Give,
the year, but that was the year. Yeah, so that was the year that you were in Connecticut and I was up here. So
oh, well,
there was.
maybe that was. No, I don't think that was the year. I don't think so. Maybe it was. I don't. Joe.
It's all melding into
It's all one big mush
big
in my
lump.
brain. Yes, it really is. I have a real. I used to be so good in remembering all these little
I remember.
details about storms, and I could give you dates and amounts and you know. I can't anymore. It's all gone. It's like, I don't know, my hard drive in my head is totally full. There's no way I can purge that, all that extra space. You have to provide me some extra hard drive space in my brain. I just, there
Cecilia
are certain
Hernandez,
things.
Cecilia Hernandez had made a suggestion. She said maybe you should take Prevagen.
And the problem is I wouldn't remember to take it. I mean, seriously, I got my vitamins, and I'm supposed to, if you got vitamins, I take them. Sometimes I go a week because I forget to take them. So, although I've gotten better with that now, you know what it is as you get older, there's just, I don't know about you, but I find that I want my life less and less complicated.
I
I
still
want,
have I still have a reasonably sharp memory, I think, and on certain things.
yeah,
Sometimes Renato will tell me something and said, "Well, don't you remember this?" And I said, "I have no clue what you're talking about." It might be something that deals with cleaning the garage or whatever, or something that she had said. I have no clue that, but I can still remember things from like 50 years ago.
oh yeah, well that, I can remember old phone numbers of. You, Oh, now, of course, you don't, everything's on your phone. You don't even bother to remember a phone number. I could barely remember my own. But that's just,
Yeah, but
that's
you and I come from a generation where they weren't all numbers. There were two
right.
letters.
I know
Right.
Edenwald 9,
Right.
um, Olinville, that was another one. Murray Hill, Plaza 5, 2098,
Yep.
Circle 7, 2098,
I
Muriel
lived
5. Right.
I lived in Harlem, as you are well aware. So did you.
So did I.
I lived on East 119th Street between, or as the natives
So
would say, 119,
on 19. I lived on
between
119,
between Pleasant and First Avenue.
and I was at Second Avenue.
And what happened was that I was drilled into my head by my mother. In case you ever get lost, this is your phone number. Memorize it. Memorize. And I looked from the age of 5, and the phone number, and I still remember it today, Enright 90096. I've never attempted to dial that number of late or recently. I wonder if anybody would answer, or whether or not they just completely, you know, disconnected that line. But Enright 90096, Dennis Cassia. Dennis Cassia put up Dialis satellite from the Hayden Planetarium.
Right.
Trafalgar 30404.
Um, Frank Scalera mentions Patsy's on First Avenue. If I've ever went, when I was a kid, I mean, every time I went to to visit my grandmother's, 50 cents, 25 was it? I think it was 25 cents would get you a slice of pizza, and 15 cents would get you a Coke, something like that. Yeah, Patsy's Pizza was, because they had like one of those wood-fired ovens, and the pizza was just amazing. Yeah,
Yep.
but hundreds of times that I've been to
Uh,
Patsy's
the
Pizza.
old, the old neighborhood.
I wonder if it's still there.
Oh, I doubt
I
it.
mean, no, it was, listen, it was there when I was, we used to drive home from Pix when I been freelancing. when I used to drive up First Avenue, it was still there. So in the 20 teens, it was still there. Um, and oh, Frank Scalera says we still have Tommy's Pizza in Throgs Neck. I don't remember Tommy's Pizza. Where was Tommy's? I remember Louie and Ernie's.
Louie and Ernie's.
Yeah,
Louie and Ernie's pizza. I remember that.
and I also remember Pizza on Wheels. That was on Tremont Avenue, and they made the doughiest pizza. It was just doughy, and I loved that. It was, thick and doughy. The dough was like half cooked. It was delicious. So anyway, oh, right by the marina. Oh, that's right. Yes, yeah. Their
Marina
pizza
Del
was
Rey.
really good. Now I remember. Yeah, Tommy's Pizza, right by the Marina Del Rey on East Tremont Avenue. I remember that. Their pizza was very good. Very good. All right. You know what? Enough talk about pizza. It's 20 after 8 Eastern time. Um, probably tomorrow we'll let you know what we're doing for Christmas. And it's probably going to be that we're going to take some time off. So, since if the weather doesn't look like it's going to produce much of anything,
I
it's probably a
suppose
good
you.
time to take some time
I
off.
suppose you want the whole day off on
Right,
Christmas Day.
exactly. So, well, that's Ruben Fairchild saying that. All right. Anyway, all right, everybody, have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night at the usual shopping time, which is 7:35 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget, if you want to if you shop on Amazon, use the referral link at the top of the chat board so you can, help the Joe and Joe Weather Show folks put stuff under their tree. Night,
Yes.
night.